Welcome to the sixth episode of Parent Quick Smarts, Grade 3, Unit 6, Representing and Analyzing Data. In this unit of study, students will explore data collection through tally charts and frequency tables, interpret and solve problems using pictographs, and interpret and solve problems using bar graphs. Students will progress from tally charts to frequency tables. The tally charts and frequency tables should be familiar to your child from previous grades. Tallies will then be converted into frequency tables, which simply are the numeric representations of the tallies. Using the frequency table, students will create pictographs as seen here. Pictographs use pictures or symbols to represent the data. Notice that this graph has a title, labels, and a key. The key is very important for students to locate and understand before reading the graph. The key defines the value of each picture. The example here states that one stick figure represents 2 votes. In order to represent 1 vote, you would need to use half a stick figure, for example, looking at riding bikes. The value of the key can vary. This is why it's very important that students begin here before interpreting a pictograph. Your child will also be asked to answer questions based on pictographs. Here are some examples of questions they may be asked for this particular pictograph. What does the key tell us about the data? If we know 1 stick figure is equal to 2 votes, then what would half of a stick figure equal? How many students voted for video games and swimming? So once again, they will have to understand the key and apply that to reading the pictograph before they'd be able to answer these questions. Your child will have been exposed to pictographs in previous grades, but the level of questioning will increase this year. Many times students will see half, double, twice as much in problems, and it's assumed they know the meaning of these terms, but actually students still struggle when applying this in the context of the problem. Students will also be asked to generate questions based on given data. So here are some example questions that may go along with this pictograph. If there are 50 bus riders, how many bike riders are there? What is the value of the key? If there are half as many car riders as there are walkers, how would I represent the car riders? As with pictographs, students will have to interpret and create bar graphs with given data. Looking at the frequency table for favorite after-school activities, the students would take that information and once again create a bar graph. Students should understand the parts of a graph and how they are important when reading the data. All bar graphs have titles, both labels, horizontal and vertical, and the interval and scale. The interval can most easily be understood as what you are counting by or how much you're increasing or decreasing by. For example, this graph has an interval of 2. The scale is like the range of numbers on the graph. The scale of this graph would be 0 to 14. Students will discover how the appearance of the graph will change if the interval or scale is altered, but that the data itself remains the same. The orientation of the bar graph could also change. For example, the bar graph shown here displays the data vertically, but could also easily be changed to display the data horizontally. Your child will also have been exposed to simple bar graphs in previous grades, however, the level of questioning will increase. Who had more wins than the New York Yankees? Students will be asked higher level questions which could require more than one step to solve. About how many more wins would the Toronto Blue Jays need to have won the division? You can also have your child generate their own questions based on a bar graph. Students will be expected to and assessed on creating questions that could be answered from the data represented in bar graphs as well as pictographs. Many times you will see graphs in newspapers and magazines as well as on TV like the examples shown here. However, do you notice anything missing? Title, labels, scale. These graphs can still be used with your child and actually could give them even deeper understanding about the data displayed. Begin by asking students what's missing. Have them create the missing parts. Using graphs like this could help determine their true understanding of the data. Again, having students create their own questions based on pictographs and bar graphs are great ways to challenge your child. The Florida content standards are listed below. Once again, in third grade, your child will be drawing pictographs and bar graphs to represent data from tally charts and frequency tables. They will also be asked to solve 1- and 2-step problems about the graphs. Here are the examples of graphs and tables your child will be exposed to. Here are some different questions you could pose as you're thinking about different types of graphs and even tables. What are different ways we can represent the data? Why do we represent them in different ways? How do you read a pictograph when each symbol equals more than one? What do you need to make sure to include in a bar graph? How would you describe making a pictograph or bar graph to a friend? Make connections to the real world by looking for data in the daily newspaper. Sometimes when we look at examples in the real world, graphs are not as detailed and complete as they need to be. Looking at this example, we don't know what the numbers represent on the scale. We don't know what the season total represents. Look for these types of graphs in the newspaper and other everyday resources and pose questions to your child. What's missing from this graph? If those missing parts were on the graph, how would that make reading this graph easier? Remember to make math relevant and exciting for your child. Look at your local team data to compare and contrast different players. Using the weather bar graph located in the newspaper, look for trends with data. Look for pictographs like the example below and pose questions to have your child compare and contrast the different data. To continue to work together to support your child in mathematics, please be sure to keep in communication with your child's teacher. You may also utilize the resources available on thinkcentral.com and be sure to visit the district's math webpage. Thank you. See you next episode.